Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. It has been quite a while. September has been a month, y'all. But I am back. I will be back consistently for the month of October at the very least, because I have too many things I've agreed to do to not be around consistently. So there's that. When you ask for accountability, somehow it shows up, and that's what happened. So as you guys know, we've been doing for I guess a quarter now. Like once a quarter we'll do like a buddy read. And so we did one earlier in the summer during June, when it was like Black Girls Debut Month, and we had so many Black women debuting their first books. And we did a live where we spoke about Bloodlight Magic by the wonderful Lizelle Samberry and The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Dalila Harris. And so this month we chose to buddy read White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson and Bad Witch Burning by Jessica Lewis. So those will be the books that we will be discussing at some point today. But today we're talking about DNF. And so before we get too deep into that, I'm going to have my lovely co-host introduce herself.
Hello, lovelies. My name is Britt. My channel is Britt Writerly. It's a book and author tube where I talk about the intersections of literature and culture. I do writerly content like monthly writing vlogs called my Honest Tea Vlogs, where I just speak candidly about my journey as a early career Black writer seeking agenting and in traditional publishing. The September vlog is coming to you Tuesday or Thursday of this week, so look out for that. I do bookish content like book vlog, like reading vlogs and book discussions that are like half like fangirl book reactions and half like let's get into like the conversations that these books open up. I may be doing like a little reading vlog for Black Aweenathon. Don't hold me to it, but I may. But like things like that, and then original content like poetry. So click around, give a thumbs up to whatever you watch, leave a little comment about how you felt about it. And, you know, if you like the vibe after a few videos, we've been dating for a minute, you want to commit to me, be my internet bae, then you click that big red button and we can be internet friends. Amen. Okay.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's say hi to people and then we'll get into the discussion. So Casey was in here first, said I'm going to be out with friends at this time, but I wanted to drop a like, have a good conversation. Thank you so much. We appreciate the like, Casey. Heather is here. Heather is the resident DNF booktuber if I've ever known one. Like, no matter what live I'm in, she is in there saying something about DNF in a book. And like, I even tweeted I was trying to channel her with the book this month, but like, we'll have to talk about it.
Is this the new avatar, Heather? Or has that been what it always is?
No, it is a newer one. All right,
Okay.
So you weren't there. I had like tweeted on Twitter because I was like, I had someone like or react to something on mine and I didn't recognize the avatar. And I was like, Harpo, who this woman? And then I saw that it was Heather. And she was like, I was trying to see who I would notice. And I was like, I noticed. I was like, I don't recognize this.
Right.
Who is this?
I don't. Right. I was like, who is this human? Hello, Heather. It's nice to see you.
Denise, it's so good to see you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Hold on real quick, y'all. I got to get this dog together.
Hello, Denise. It's nice to see you.
I had to tell him to back up. He doing too much. He know what he doing. We already had a conversation before the live got started. Britt heard me.
True.
I was real nice. I was like, hey, you know, I'm about to go live. I need you to back up a little bit. Just back up. I already told him when Britt was doing her intro, so he was trying me. That's what it was for y'all that don't know. Emma Ray is here. Hey, beautifuls. Hello, love. It's so good to see you. Lee is in the house. For those of you guys who don't know, Lee will be co-hosting with me during the Worldwide Write-a-thon that will be happening next month. We will be streaming at like 4:30 a.m. Eastern time, y'all. Like, it's going to be up and early. There shall be a writing vlog. I don't know when y'all will see it, so don't get me to lying. But I will be shooting content, so there's that. Bina in the house. Hello, Feminist Woman of Color reader. For those of you guys who don't know, Vina has a blog. Definitely check it out. I have retweeted different things, and if you follow her on Twitter, you will be able to see that. So definitely make sure you check that out. Tani said, "Ooh, I wanted to check out Bad Witch Burning." Yes. Charlotte says, "Oh, hey, wonderful to see your lovely faces." Hey, Charlotte. I hope everything is doing well down there in Australia. Chloe, or not Chloe, Cleo. No, it is Chloe. Okay. I don't know why. Cleo is my dog's name. I don't know what. I was tripping just now. Okay. Chloe. Chloe had an interview today with Alexis Henderson, the author of The Year of the Witching, I believe is the title. I got to watch it and join in the live chat and ask some questions. So if you did not get to see it, definitely check the replay. It was a great conversation. Look, sometimes DNFing is good for the soul. You know, I have embraced that truth this month, and I will be exercising the right to DNF going forward. Vita says, I finally started channeling my inner Heather too, and DNFing. It's a thing. It's a thing. Sid, hey, love, it's so good to see you. Lee said, woo woo. Becca, hello. For those of you guys who don't know, Becca is one of my lovely CPs, and also has Becca's Craft Corner, where she is giving videos about sewing and the different sewing projects. Y'all, she done made a Loki bag. She makes like mini dragons, everything. So, you know, go subscribe. Y'all know how we feel about making things with our hands. We love it on this channel. Charlotte says, I can only remember 2 books which I have consciously DNF'd. Lots of unfinished, but I plan to finish them eventually. Oh, can't wait to talk about that. As Injiri from Onyx Pages said, the PID, the put it down. So not that you won't go back to it. I love it. And I do not regret DNFing either of them. See, I feel that way. Becca. Okay. Love. Okay. All right, y'all. So, again, the purpose of this conversation is to talk about DNFing. And we know that, like, in our community, DNF has like a bad connotation, which is why so many of us don't necessarily do it, and we feel like we need to continue to read and stuff like that. And so what we want the conversation to be is about that. So definitely, if you have thoughts or different things like that, don't hesitate to drop them in the live chat. This will be slightly different because, again, it's more of a writerly conversation, so we'll be discussing things, but we definitely would love to get your viewpoints on the topic. So part of the reason we decided to do this live is because this is our second time buddy reading. And this is our second time where one of us has wanted to DNF the book and the other one's like, nah, you got to finish it. Nah, come on, keep going. And so I will admit that I was the person the first time of The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Dalila Harris, because I finished it first. And I was like, you just got to keep going. Just keep going. It gets there. And while me and Britt's initial viewpoint of the book was very different, after us both sitting with it for months, they're almost exactly identical at this point. Both think the writing is good. The writing is good. But as a reader, it's a no for us, dog. Like, it's just a no. It's just a no. And so I went into our September read remembering that and knowing that it was a possibility it was going to bite me in the backside. And I didn't get to White Smoke because, again, September was a hard month. I was like sick most of it, so I started later. And me and Britt are the kind of buddy readers where we send messages back and forth, voice messages about stuff. So I'm having to like listen to all of these. I need you to hurry up and start reading so you can get here, so I'm not here going through this by myself. And so then I catch up and surpass Britt. And I'm like, I don't want to keep reading. And I want to keep, remember what you did? And it was like, I do remember what I did. I have learned my lesson. Forgive me, madam. Please forgive me. And so I guess that really does lead us into the, like, what makes us push to keep reading and what we learned from it. Because, like, what we both learned from powering through was that we definitely hit a reading slump. We definitely, over the summer, have not read as many books as were reading at the beginning of the year. Like, even if it wasn't a a conscious thing. Like when I know looking back, it's like, nah, I didn't. 2 books, 1 book, 2 books. Like each month, like it was never like a like how I was reading 4 or 5 books beforehand. And I know for me, it was because mentally it was exhausting. Like the mental gymnastics I had to do reading the book, the way that the characters and the storyline like sat with me was not a good feeling. And it definitely carried on. And my unwise self continued to push and read books that I wanted to DNF because I'm one of those people that feel like I can't talk noise if I don't finish the book. I can't give you a full list of what you did wrong if I didn't finish it. I can only give you half a list, and maybe you made up for it in the second half. I won't know unless I read it. So that's kind of me. What about you, Britt?
Okay. Because it's like Shay said, and that 10 seconds of lack of articulation is my summer reading in sound. Like that is a soundtrack of my mood for summer reading. I like that's what it was this summer. Because it was just so many things where it was like, I see what you're trying to do. That is only going to help you so much, my dude. Like, it was very much like something is not working. So the title of this live is Time of DNF, because we're talking about the political allegiance that we as Black readers have to Black writers to want to read their books, to want to finish, to want to review. At the same time, we have an ethical obligation to ourselves to control the content that comes into our lives, because we still have to live in this body, in this brain, and other things in the world are happening. And we have to deal with that too. So like, I can't be so committed to any Black writer that I put my mental health at risk for the sake of saying I finished their book and I can talk about it. And I see Chloe saying like, I feel okay giving critiques if I DNF at least 1/3 of the way in. I feel similarly in that, like, now, right? Like the other Black girls taught us some lessons. Now I'm like, I want to get to where I see a pattern, right? I want to be able to know why I'm DNFing. I don't want it to just be like a vague feeling. I want to know. But once I know why I'm DNFing something, I will DNF. And if someone asks me about it, I feel comfortable saying why. And if it was a huge thing, I feel comfortable leaving a review and saying, this was a huge thing. Full disclosure, I did not finish the book, but here is why I didn't finish the book. And I feel fine giving this review, and even a bit obligated to give this review because I want to offer some content warnings for others, right? And so like, that is something where I felt like Shay and like being that if I didn't finish it, I feel like I could talk about it. But it's like, if I feel strongly enough to DNF, then I can give a review with the caveat to people that I DNF'd at chapter 8, at chapter 16, whatever, right? So that's me. I feel like this is the conversation that we need to have, because there is this push to like be completers, but that doesn't acknowledge the labor of reading, that doesn't acknowledge the emotional labor, as well as the intellectual labor of dealing with the content that you're reading, because we know that words have power. Good writing has an effect on your mental. It shows you things that you may or may not want to see, and bad writing can do some of the same things, right? So I'm talking about and getting into this live, I just wanted to get into like that political allegiance juxtaposed to that ethical allegiance that we have.
Yeah, no, we can definitely swing into that, because I know for me, like, I primarily read Black authors. Like I do read authors that are not Black, but the majority of everything I read is written by Black authors. And there was a conversation I was having with a Black author, and they were saying, you know, I don't feel obligated to review a book if I bought it, because I've done my due diligence in supporting you. So if I supported you and I bought that book and I read it and I didn't like it, there's nothing else that I need to do to support you outside of that if I don't like the story. And, you know, I was like, you know, that's very valid, because, you know, a lot of times we continue to read the book because we want to show support for the author. And I know part of the reason why that didn't work as much for me is because I use Libby and Overdrive religiously. So there is so often that I don't buy books because I am too scared, one, that I'm gonna buy a book and waste my money on it and feel some type of way. Because had I waited to buy the other Black Girl until I had sat with it, I wouldn't have 2 copies of it in my house right now. So there's that, which will be coming in an October Black Aweenathon giveaway since it's a thriller. So stay tuned, watch out for that. But part of that is like the issue for me is that like I want to support, but I through June and September, I had to remember that skinfolk and kinfolk translates to books as well. All Black authors are not writing for the betterment of Black people. And if you are one of those authors, I should not sacrifice my mental well-being and health to show you that support. And that was something that like was definitely reiterated through this September read, because I just, y'all, I pushed myself to read this book. Like I pushed really, really hard to read it. And I was like, because like in my head, I was like, you know, she's a mystery and thriller author. I cannot, like, you know, her first book, I loved it. The second one, I didn't love it. It was all right. So it's like she's 1 and 1. She got a book coming out in September. She already got this book. Let me see. Maybe I'll read this book, book number 3, and she'll be 2 and 1. She was 1 and 2. So I went into book 4 with a losing ratio, hoping for and expecting for. And honestly, book 4 is the worst book of them all for me. But each time I pushed myself, like those who know me privately when I'm talking about the book, it was a struggle. I was having like mental battles with reading these stories, because as a Black woman who wants to be published, I want other Black women to read my books. I don't want them to feel triggered. I don't want them, and if they are triggered, I want them to be warned that they're going to be triggered. Like I don't want to sneak that in onto them. And I was taught to be the change you want to see. So if I want Black women to read me, I need to be the Black woman reading Black women. All Black women are not created the same. We know Black women, we know Black people are not a monolith, and we say it and we hear it, but it is a whole completely different thing to see it in action as you are going through your reading and writing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I just got so like, woo, when you said you deserve to be warned if you might be triggered, because to be honest, let's just go when you're talking about these books, because we're talking around them now. Well, you got into it. So like you went in 2 and 1 or 1 and 2 with Tiffany D. Jackson. Shay has read more of Tiffany Jackson's books than I have. She's read Allegedly, Monday's Not Coming, right? Grown, and now White Smoke fully. Liked Allegedly, didn't like Grown, and Monday's Not Coming, and then didn't like White Smoke. So 1 and 3 now. I read Monday's Not Coming and almost all of White. I think I DNF White Smoke like 60% in. And so I I liked Monday's Not Coming. Like is a weird word to use for a book that's about a Black girl that was murdered by her own mother. And no one looked for her but her friend who no one believed. So like it's like is a weird word, but I appreciated the book for drawing attention to missing Black girls who no one looks for, even if they are missing by the hand of their own parents. Black girls are valuable, even if their own parents don't see that value. That's an important conversation. And as someone who, and Shay knows this, as someone who is invested a lot of my manuscripts that I am working on, a lot of the ideas that I have, missing children and missing Black women come up often, even if they're not the point of the book. And for one of the projects that I'm farthest along with, that is the point of the book. So I really appreciated Tiffany Jackson broaching that subject in Monday's Not Coming. Where I have friction with Tiffany D. Jackson is the care or lack thereof she takes with these Black girls. Now, I would have to read Monday's Not Coming again. But I currently, in my first reading of Monday's Not Coming, don't have this issue with her and Monday's Not Coming. I don't have this issue with it. But from what I've heard of Shay Was Grown and from what I read in White Smoke, I don't see a pattern of being careful with how we display trauma and Black children. So I DNF'd White Smoke. I don't even know the time, like what place it was. It was like 60%. I don't even know where exactly I was in it. I DNF'd it when Shay told me that something happened to her dog. I don't like seeing pets hurt. I don't like seeing pets hurt. I don't like seeing them tortured or killed or maimed or whatever. And that's when I was like, I'm done. And there should have been a content warning. Now, after hearing her say what happened to the dog is probably alive and well, like whatever. But I was already done with White Smoke by that. That was just the straw where I was like, goodbye. Because what really needed a trigger warning was violence against a Black child, a violent arrest. Like that needed a trigger warning. And when I came upon that part in the book I was like, is it just because it's the audio version and does the physical version have a content warning? And I said this in a live and someone said no. Yeah, semi-spoiler, because I believe that trigger warning should be out there. So like they're like trigger warning for a violent arrest of a Black youth, high schooler. I like the fact that was not a content warning upset me hugely because I did not want to witness that, and I came upon it very suddenly, and it was just like I was scared for this child, and I did not want to be made to feel that against my will. It should be my choice to come into that kind of triggering content, not for you to spring it on me. And when that happened, I felt like I couldn't trust Tiffany Jackson anymore. I couldn't trust her with myself, like in my mental health and reading this book, and I couldn't trust her with these Black girl characters if you're going to treat them this way and not even think enough of the situation to understand that it would be triggering for Black girl readers. So then when I see that you don't put a content warning in for violence against a Black girl, it makes me think that you're not really being careful with the politic of presenting their pain. I respect it if you're doing it to open up conversations and to let these things not be in the shadows. But if you're using it as trauma porn, I have no respect for that. And when you don't do responsible things like put content warnings in there, it makes me think you're leaning more toward trauma porn than other things. Especially because all of your books have some sort of trauma with Black children. And I wanted to believe that it was for, the former cause of wanting to like bring these things to light. But the way she was moving with White Smoke, the fact that Grown got released at the time that it did with all the R. Kelly things, it just seemed more capitalistic than not. And I want to support Black writers. I do not support anyone profiting off of Black pain, period. I don't care if you're Black, white, or purple. I do not support you using Black children's pain to make a name and a brand for yourself and then not caring for the Black readers who are going to read that book. enough to warn them that that's the case, because like at that point it's like, I don't feel like you're writing this book for me, because you would consider a Black reader this might trigger them, and so that you didn't give a content warning makes me think that you didn't write this book with me in mind anyway.
For me, the thing that bothers me is the fact that the arrest did nothing for the story. You legitimately had this character arrested and it did nothing for the story. We didn't hear from this character anymore. We don't know exactly what happened with this character, like nothing. So you could have left the scene out. Like it didn't do anything to the story at all.
And I think what it was supposed to do was to, like, because right after that arrest, she goes home and Mr. Sterling is there, and he is basically like, I had your friend arrested because you were snooping, and I wanted you to know that I could get to you, sort of thing. Which that's where I stopped reading, because I was like, whoo, I can't deal with Black girls being in proximity to like dangerous white men. I can't deal with it. So that's the point where I stopped reading. When I heard about the dog, I was like, I'm done. But I think that was the point, was for her to build suspense around that, but for you not to bring Erica, that's her name, for you to not bring Erica, the girl who was arrested, back into the story, or even check on her. Once again, what is your politic? What is your ethic? Like, you're not being careful. I can't trust you, so I don't want to support you.
And for me, you still could have done it, because if he heard about Erica, then he heard about her growing weed in the little warehouse. So like, there's other ways you could have done it. Like,
something else.
You chose to do this and you were reckless with it. And for me, I'm not okay with that. Like, we have to see that enough on replay over and over in real life. Like, so many videos of Black girls being arrested violently, and it's like, why would you put this in here unnecessarily? I feel like this is one, I love this comment. I don't feel like, me personally, sensitivity readers are not optional. They are not optional. But I want to go back to something Vina said that I feel like meant so much to White Smoke in particular, is some of these authors don't put in the research work necessary to discuss some of these topics too. For me, White Smoke was all over the place, and it bothered me. I could not tell as a reader what I was supposed to think or feel, other than weed is awful and anyone who smokes it deserves what they get, is all I really legitimately got from the story. Like, it bothered me, because again, for me, this goes back to the ethics of storytelling, the ethics of reading, the ethics of books. For me, I could not ethically push the same agenda that has put so many Black people into prison for a lie. Like, I couldn't write a book villainizing weed when we know marijuana isn't the problem. It bothered me, which is another reason, I know you kind of spoke on it a little bit, my issue with Grown. I feel like Grown was a very necessary story, and it is a story that needs to be told. But I feel like Grown was specifically about a situation that we know to be going on currently. And I think there's something ethically wrong writing about an experience for girls who still have to know this book exists while they're still having to get on the stand and talk about what happened to them. To me, I don't think that's okay.
And was it you or someone else who was like, if you watch the documentary, the book is really about one girl in particular, and it's very clear?
Somebody told me that. Someone, because I've not watched the documentary. Someone who watched the documentary was like, well, I liked Grown, but it was very predictable for me because I'd already seen the documentary, and it's, you can specifically tell that it's about one specific girl. And so I was like, that bothers me. And I feel like the reason it bothers me so much is because the author goes into their note to talk about, being groomed. And the truth is, most girls aren't being groomed by a multimillionaire singer. Most girls are being groomed by the dude that comes into their job every Tuesday and tells them they look cute in their uniform. Like, I just feel like you could have taken more care. And so when it came to White Smoke, I was like, This girl was taking Percocets, like admittedly using Percocets as a drug, and we never talk about that. But we talk about the weed that she's smoking to help her anxiety and help her stay more in control of the phobia that she has. I don't like it. I don't like it.
And you brought up this really, really great point, Shay, when we were reading about the fact that so she had the, what is her name? Marigold. The also hello, Brandy and Erica and Shamla. Hello, hello, hello. Thank y'all for coming. We're glad you made it to the live. When we were reading White Smoke, you brought up this really excellent point. So the protagonist's name is Marigold, or Mari. Her brother's name is what? Billy?
Sammy, girl, Sammy.
Cute little kid. Anyway, so they had their dad, who seems like a wonderful father. He just worked a lot, so her mom divorced him, which, like, not getting into that. So they lived in California. The dad works a lot. He travels a lot for his job. He was in New York, came back from New York, and brought bed bugs back from New York with him. Yes, semi spoiler. He brought bed bugs back with him. When the bed bugs first started like bite, because they ate Mari up. When they first started biting, no one really knew what they were, and no one was really, they were like, oh, it's just allergies, oh, it's just mosquito bites. Like, it took a little minute until she woke up one day with her face covered in bites for them to be like, wait, no, what is this? So when we were talking about Mari's investigation and wherever, what city is she in now in the story?
No, I know the area she lives in is Maplewood, but I
don't
don't
know what state they're supposed to be in, but she's moving from California. But the point is, when the bed bugs originally came, no one was checking in with her. No one believed that something was wrong, which is why it progressed so bad. And now she has an entire, not want to be Detroit, while she has this entire phobia around them now, where she's very paranoid. But had we cut that off at the past earlier, then that wouldn't have happened. Now we're in wannabe Detroit. And she's saying there's something wrong with this house. And once again, nobody's believing her because, well, you were on perks. And here's
the thing is, nobody addresses the perks. What happened was her ex-boyfriend gave her weed that was laced with fentanyl, and she had an overdose. That's what happened.
So,
but you can this out. All you know is she had Percocets. Mm-hmm. Somehow there was an overdose, and she used weed to medicate for her anxiety. That's all you know. You don't know until after Erica's arrested, like, any of this. So
which is more than 50% away through the book, by the way. Right. It's a while.
Right. Which is fine. Like, okay, you're trying to mystique, whatever. I don't care. But the way that the story is written is you're vilifying this weed, and we don't know why. And the truth is, you're vilifying it because it was laced with fentanyl, which means it wasn't just weed, which means that everything you've been doing to vilify weed for the whole 60% of the book before this makes no sense.
Right. Right. And so the point that Cachet was making that I think is pertinent now is that there's a pattern of not believing Mari, which Tiffany Jackson could have brought to the fore, but didn't. She just continued to use it as a defining characteristic for how people deal with her, which is to not believe her and to undermine her word, which, like, that's what put her in a position to need weed for her anxiety in the first place. And now, because of how she had to cope with her anxiety brought on by people not paying enough attention to her, you completely delegitimize everything that comes out of her mouth. Because, are you high right now? Yo. So, like, that the fact that didn't get dealt with, like, it's not that interesting conversations were not brought up in this book, or are not brought up in all of Tiffany Jackson's books. It's the way that you don't allow those to be what come out. You let these other things that are like take over, and that's what sort of like chokes out the potential conversations that the book could be having.
And then it was like you don't, like, it was weird because like your parents don't trust you for smoking weed, but you've been smoking weed ever since you got out of rehab. You smoked weed on the drive to Cedarville. So when your mom asks you to take a drug test and you've been around weed and smoking weed, the fact that it never comes up that you're gonna fail this drug test was like, why are we even doing this? Why are we putting this distrust mechanism in here? Because as somebody who smokes weed, bruh, it's in your fat cells for 30 days. So your mom asking 3 days after you smoked the joint, plus you've been smoking since before you got here, bruh, it was like, if you're going to tackle this topic, was this not basic things you could have looked up? Was this not basic things that you didn't, like, it just didn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And again, you made her parents distrust her and have her take this drug test for nothing to happen of it. It was just all these things, like they never brought it back up. Like, so she had you pee in a cup because she was scared, like to scare you. It bothered me. And also, the thing that for us is the biggest DNF and will bring us to Bad Witch Burning for me is Bad Black Mamas. And after reading The Mother in White Smoke, I couldn't. So, semi-spoiler alert is still up. From the way the story reads, 2 years prior to the start of the story, her parents got divorced. That's the way it reads. Within the last year of the story, her mother met the man that she got married to. She overdosed, went to rehab, and they moved to wannabe Detroit. All of this within a 2-year span, right? So the man that she marries and the conversation about how they meet and whatnot was like white saviorism if I've ever read it, and it bothered the mess out of me, but you know, here it is. She marries the man. I can't even think of this man's name. That's how uninteresting he was. So
was it Kevin?
I don't even know. I know the mom's name is Raquel, and I know the black daddy's name is Shay. Don't know.
Wow, and their names were said less than this white man for sure.
I have no idea what the daddy's name is. I have no idea what the stepdaddy's name is. So there's the stepdad and his daughter, who I've been calling Brit Bratch. But her can't think of her name right now either. So there's that. Piper, there we go. Yes. I know it was something with 2 syllables, but I couldn't think of what it was. And then there's Raquel, Sammy, and Mari, right? And so there's the scene where they're like, okay, this house is haunted. We telling y'all not listening. I'm calling my daddy to leave. And apparently the stepdad is like, is this true? Because the daughter is like, y'all said if it don't work out and we're not comfortable, like we can go back to Cali with dad. And he says, is this true? Here's the thing. What father that loves his children aren't going to give his children an out if they're moving in with a man that they don't feel comfortable with? That should have been the conversation. So when we fast forward to mama taking them on a lake trip or whatever to talk to them or go to a restaurant, and she's like, his feelings were really hurt about our contingency plan. First of all, why are you involving a child in this adult business? Because that's between y'all. The fact that you never told him that is on you, not on her. So let's start there. Second, the mama goes, he really does love you. And she says, he has a funny way of showing it. And she turns to the daughter and says, so do you. Woman, I don't know this man. What do you mean? Here's the thing that we need to be honest with about people. Adults and children are not the same thing. If you are expecting a child to act in the way of an adult, You, my friend, are delusional. I'm just saying, you're delusional. And I don't expect my child to feel the same way about somebody that I love that is new to their life because they're a child. And I feel like the fact that we ignore the bed bugs anxiety, we ignore that she could be going through anything because her father and mother are no longer together, or the fact that her mother has jumped into this very new marriage and moved a new man and a new child into the house. Like, none of this is ever talked about. It's all like Mari just started doing drugs for no reason. And it goes back to the conversation we have in this country that deals with addiction. People act like people just start doing drugs because their life is great and they just want to keep living great life. That's not what happens. People don't become addicts because everything is great.
Yes, to Heather, children are not responsible for adult emotions. And that, I don't know if any of y'all watched The Real Daytime Show and know, like, when Tamara Maury Housley was on it and she used to say, I turn up. But that was one of the, I don't know this man, sorry to this man, exactly. Like, that scene when her mom said, so do you have a funny way of showing your love? That was that turned me all the way up. You, madam, have struck a false equivalency. You said he loves me. I never said I loved him. So our emotions towards one another and our behavior towards one another are not comparable. And the fact that he feels bad that I don't want to be around him when both of you all are letting his daughter bully me, I don't care what the reason is. I know that something happened to the little girl's grandmother. I won't tell you what for like a spoiler, but she was around when something happened to her grandmother who is now dead. She's a 10-year-old, emotions, right? Like, okay. And she indeed might act out of those emotions and grief. And it's difficult for her to gather herself. But you have a responsibility to Piper and Mari in that situation. You need to teach that little girl how to deal with grief without hurting other people. Like, you just do. Letting her do whatever she wants because she is grieving is not okay. It doesn't serve Piper. It doesn't serve Mari. And it felt like they were prioritizing this little girl over a bigger little girl. Mari is not grown. She needs to be protected just as much as Piper does. And absolutely, bad parents NYA used too much. Like, give me complicated parents, but out and out bad parents, especially out and out bad Black parents, I turn up. I feel like at this point it's just lazy. I feel like at this point you're doing it to make the parent leave or to make the child remove themselves and thereby get one or two characters out of the way. The mother and the father, if they're both in the home, or just one if one of them is only in the home. But if the parents and the child are at opposition, the child will pull away and we can focus in on the child's actions and not have to be accountable to a parent who, if they were present, would be asking some questions like, where the heck are you going at this time of night? And who are these people? And what's going on with you? And why are you hurt? We don't want to deal with a parent asking those questions. So in essence, we want a world where children are not defended by parents. But what does that look like to show that world to children? Not at all, right? Because all representation, but over and over and over again, we're showing parents who don't protect children and children who have to do reckless and dangerous things to take care of themselves. I don't like that that's the prevailing message in YA literature across race lines.
Right.
That's the end of my TED Talk on bad parents. Thank you for listening.
And y'all know how I feel about it, just because, again, regardless of how any of us truly feel about it, everything that we do in the public sector becomes mixed company. And what people forget is that books become movies and TV shows, and media is what people, specifically Americans, because I can't talk about people in other countries, except for that we know that they look at Black people like what they see in media. Right. So if we're constantly writing books where Black parents are awful,
right,
then people are constantly seeing Black children grow up with bad Black parents, and then you wonder why we have whole Twitter threads. Well, you know how they don't raise their kids. Like,
Right.
it's because these people don't honestly actively know that many Black people, but they
Right.
see what Black people write themselves and put out there.
Right. Because
So
there's
you
an
gotta
extra
be
layer of
writing from
legitimacy on it when a
experience.
Black writer does.
It just back to the ethics of it for me. Like, it's just it does a lot. It does a lot. And so with that takes us into Bad Witch Burning. So I am going to admit I have not started Bad Witch Burning. I plan to read it when I am mentally in a space to do so, but I do reserve the right to DNF. Because as Britt will tell you when she speaks, the book does some things that are hard to read and or listen to.
Sorry, I'm looking at Mia's comment about A Blade So Black. I liked the mother in A Blade So Black, and that's about all I liked about that book. And that's just me being 100. And I did read that to the end. That was a 3-star read max.
Yeah.
For me, I did like her mother a lot. I didn't like the way that L.L. McKinney had this daughter dealing with her mother, who had a very real and sensible fear about her daughter's health when a little Black girl had just been shot for wearing gang colors in the wrong place at the wrong time that she did not mean to. She was wearing colors. The gang was like, those are our colors, and she got shot. Okay, and now we have this girl running around in Wonderland, and let me not even get into that's a totally different thing. But yes, that was a representation of a good mother. Now the daughter's a whole different story, but we move. Okay, so that would absolutely, yeah. Dislike toxic parents in all my books, regardless of age range. I want to see characters with excellence. Period.
Right.
Period. Like, if the action and this is for me as a writer, because I recognize that it is easier to write a book where the parents, period.
All of it.
I recognize that as a writer, it's easier to have certain relationships that take characters out of play, so you don't have to be responsible for them. But you cannot sublimate everything else to that desire to remove a character from play if you have concerns of the politics of representation around removing certain characters in certain ways. Either find a different way to scoot them back from the forefront, or deal with them being there. Because wow, that, like, talk about a revolutionary Black fantasy. Can we have a Black fantasy where the family is there and they're not crap? And I'll just give a shout out to Lizelle because
that's the only one I know of.
The family is there. And it's complicated, and they sometimes make decisions that you don't like. But even when they make decisions that we don't agree with, they never leave. They are always there. They are advising Voya in ways that we're like, do or don't agree. But they're never like, do this or I'm going to leave. Like, they are there the entire time. She comes home to them every night, and they are there. It's a big house with a big family, right? And so I think stories like that, we need more of them. But Bad Witch Burning. Ooh, the girl's name. Cottrell. It's about, I think Cottrell is like 16 or 17 years old. She's in high school. She is a necromancer. I think it's a really cool take on necromancy, and that she writes letters to summon ghosts for people to talk to, and people pay her to do this. She does this to supplement her job at a like sandwich place where she mops the floors. And she works 30 hours a week, gets minimum wage. She is just waiting for the opportunity to drop out of high school. Like, that's one of her goals, is to reach a certain point. I don't know what this point is, to reach a certain point to be able to drop out of high school. Or maybe she's waiting to graduate. I don't know, but she is ready to be done with school so she can work a full-time job. Because she is supporting her mother and her mother's latest live-in boyfriend. Her mother got fired from Walmart 6 months ago and has not gotten a job since, has not looked for a job since, and has this man in the home who is violent towards Cottrell. who was verbally abusive and physically abusive. So trigger warnings for physical abuse. Not in their relationship with the man and her mother. He is very kind to her mother because her mother acts very submissively to him. She's very much like just smile and stroke his ego and get on out the way, and that works for her. He's kind to the mother. He is abusive to Cottrell because Cottrell is like, forget you, you in my home, eat up the food that I bought. And he works at Wendy's and contributes financially to the home, not at all. We don't even know where his money goes, but it's not going to that household. So that's what happens. In the beginning of the book, Cottrell is bringing back her best friend, Will's grandmother. The grandmother gets summoned and talks to Will. After she's done talking to her granddaughter, she turns to Trell and is like, don't bring me back here anymore. You're burning. You've been burning for a while. You haven't noticed it yet, but you're about to. I'm sorry to be cryptic, but I don't have a lot of time. But don't bring me or any other ghost back at all. It's if you do, it'll burn down everything around you. And then she leaves. This is in the first chapter of the book. So she's gonna do that. And then she goes home and finds out that something has happened to the rent money, that her mom's boyfriend is like, that's grown folks' business. It's grown folks' business, but you want my money to pay for the rent. Okay. And they get into an altercation. He draws a gun on her. So, trigger warning for all sorts of violence. He draws a gun on her and ends up shooting her dog, who we've seen with her in the first chapter of the book. She loves this dog. His name is Conrad. He shoots the dog. She writes a letter to try to summon the dog back. She changes the wording that she usually uses, which is, I, Cottrell, whatever her last name is, compel you to speak with me. She changes it to, because she wants to be more personal with her dog, and just says, Conrad, come home. The changing of that wording ends up bringing Conrad back in his body instead of summoning his spirit. So then she's like, oh, I can get mad money for bringing people's loved ones back. And decides that because she's in this financial pinch, it's worth the risk that her grandmother is, her best friend's grandmother warned her about her burning. She doesn't even know what that means yet. So she starts bringing people back. That's where the necromancy comes in. That's the premise of the book. I got to chapter 15 or something like that. Then I had a chat with Lizelle, just asking her, like, hey, what happens in this book? Because after the gun being drawn, after Conrad being killed, again, I don't like seeing things happening to pets. Lizelle warned Shay, who warned me that something was going to happen to Conrad. So I was like, okay, she said it happened early. So I was like, I can just fast forward through that part now that I know it's there. Like, I want to see where this book goes, because I knew from talk on Twitter and other authors saying that this book came from Jessica Lewis's lived experience. So I was like, okay, so I want to give her the benefit of the doubt. The dog dies. All right, I'll maneuver with that, because when I get warned, then I can make my own choice. So when I read that, what I wanted to put it down, because I do want to go back to it. I put it down because I was also just not here for seeing a Black girl unprotected. After White Smoke, after looking at Mari being unbelieved and unprotected, after seeing Erica be arrested so casually, and her arrest being what's the word I'm looking for? Orchestrated. Her arrest being orchestrated so casually by this white man, but also on a larger scale by Tiffany Jackson. Because yes, Mr. Sterling did it, but really you did it. You chose for that to happen, and it was very casual, and the treatment of her and afterwards was very casual because we never heard from him again. After seeing all these Black girls be dealt with that way, I just wasn't up for seeing Cottrell be abused by this boyfriend and neglected by her mother, and her hopes and dreams and money just being siphoned away from her. And so when I told Shay, because I know that bad Black mothers are a thing for her, when I told her what was going on in the book so far, she made the choice not to even start it. And when my loan expired, I made the choice not to renew it. So that's the framing of this conversation around Bad Witch burning.
Yeah, and I want to just make sure I'm saying this, the abuse is not minor. So how you oh, maybe she gets hit a couple times, it's not minor. So just if you do go into that, be aware that it might be a little bit more intense than what you're used to. Just want to make sure that that's said, because
it's a lot. It's a lot.
Right. When I was told about it, I was like, okay, I can deal with that a little bit. And she was like, no. It's okay. Well, then now I need to reevaluate, because again, I knew I'm going into Black Aweenathon. I got lots of books I want to read. I'm not trying to be triggered in September and can't get to them, you know? And so Lee said this, and what they said, I think, is real. It is also usually the MC's parents. Why are we associating being a protagonist or being special with dealing with pain from the people you should be getting support from? I saw that Chelsea was in the chat, and I don't know if you still here, but I ain't got no tea. But if I did, it would be hot, because I had a full video about this last year about things that I don't like as a Black woman in books. And one of them is the strong Black woman. And for something in YA, that's what we're always writing, are these strong Black girls who deal with hit after hit after hit after hit. And we give them no release from it. We put them in these predominantly white spaces with nobody that looks like them, with nobody that is there to help them, with nobody that's truly a real friend. And it's just like, what are we getting out of this? What is the purpose? What does that do for anybody but tell them that this is what we expect? We expect that you, as a young Black girl, that no matter what comes at you, to still be strong and not waver and not need any kind of help, to not need it. It's dangerous and it's problematic. And as someone who was raised to be a strong Black girl, I resent it. I really, really do. I haven't read these, but I do want to read these. I saw The Forgotten Girl, and it looks really, really good. I haven't seen Year I Flew Away, but Forgotten Girl looks good. Brandy, hey love, says, I would love to read more books about positive Black women and families. I'm just trying to understand why there is so few authors that do this. Do authors feel that in order to make more money, they constantly have to write troubling, disturbing storylines where it deals with bad Black parents? And this is a conversation that, as writers, me and Britt have had privately, because I've said, like, you know, the conversation is, you know, you keep querying and you keep pushing that book. It doesn't matter if it takes 10 years. And it's like, is that why these books change? Is it that you had this pro-Black book, this book that made us reevaluate and think of things in a different light, but nobody bought it, so you changed it here and you changed it there and you changed it a little bit more so you could get published, and now this is what we get? Because if that's what I have to do, then your girl just need to learn how to self-publish and find some, you know, black book cover designers and Black editors, because there are some lines I'm not willing to cross. And I tweeted about this earlier. As Black people, so much of our life is choosing what things we're going to speak up on and what things we're going to let slide. And I'm not going to be one of those authors that lets this pervasive anti-Blackness slide in my works.
And what I would say is, and I'm looking at Save the Cat and trying to find the place because I know I saw it, because I think that a lot of the things that we're talking about can be located in this book. And I'm not saying located in this book as in it's Jessica Brody's fault, but because this book is so like, it's like a Bible for pacing in books and for like writing your zero draft or your outline or whatever, I do see a lot of those things that we're talking about in here. For instance, we're talking about why do we have to have the protagonist? Why do we have to have the protagonist of a story be in such tremendous, we're not talking about a small amount of pain. These Black girls be hurting, and really even the white one, they be hurting. Like these young they're hurting like traumatically, even if their trauma is treated casually and then a bigger trauma gets the attention. It's always something like world breaking. That's sort of how Save the Cat tells you to construct a story-worthy hero, is for them to have mad flaws and they need to have something that really shifts them and makes them change. But it's like, right. And then like at some point in the beat sheet, you're told to like kill their mentor or the sidekick or whatever. And that plunges them into the all is lost beat or the darkest night of the soul beat, whichever one. Here's the thing. And I have used the Save the Cat beat. She is very helpful for pacing and thinking about a story worthy hero. Like those things really are helpful. But here's the thing also. And again, I am not locating this responsibility in Jessica Brody because I think everything that she said within context is helpful. But when we, like, who was it? I forget who said, like, having these protagonists be special through their pain. That's something that you can find in Save the Cat. Like, that's what makes them a story-worthy hero is their pain. And so I think that when we require death in order to move a story, when we require trauma in order to catalyze change, it's just like, can we not find joy in softer things? Like, why can't something less traumatic, something less painful be what moves a character to act, be what moves a character to make a realization? Because yes, people don't change unless they have to, but there are levels to what ends up making a person change. And for it always to be something on a 10 on the trauma scale that makes them change, I think is unnecessary and spectacularizes pain in a way that can inure us to it completely and make us expect it in a way that is not healthy. Yes, Lee.
I completely agree. Vina, well, Nick Stone says she has to write black pain to make money. She doesn't have to. It's a choice, but so many black authors gain their defense. I'm trying to find the video so I can put the link in the chat, y'all. I was trying to figure out, I was like, what video are they talking about? Like, I know. But yes, the strong black woman trope can be super duper harmful. It is okay not to be okay. I also had an issue with Slave because the only black male is portrayed negatively. Like, I'll DNF a book real hard for that. I will. Heather says, the strong black woman trope always makes me think of the, wow, you're so strong. I could never do that when you're just dealing with what life's thrown at you and you don't have a choice but to deal. Exactly. This is the question that really needs answers because it high key feels like it. Venus says, Tro does have other adults looking out for her and she has her best friend trying to help, but she's normalized her mother's abuse to the point where she doesn't want to acknowledge the truth. Very much so. Here's the thing. That's the truth. That's the truth. Negative black images sell. And you know what? Denzel got the Oscar for a negative black image. Halle got the Oscar for a negative black image. Monique got the Oscar for a negative black image.
Man. What was that?
All Precious? Of these people have done phenomenal roles in other things where they didn't have to do that. Like I feel like Elizabeth Acevedo has made the New York Times bestseller list, but I feel like there's such a difference in how people promote the authors that are black, that promote black pain versus the ones that don't. Like, there are things that are not pleasant that happen in Miss Acevedo's books. But for the most part, I've never felt negatively reading her books. I've never been like, dang, it's hard to be black. Like, I live in the world that it's hard to be black. Why must I read books that remind me that it's hard to be black? Like, as a child, I didn't have moments where the hardness of being black never crossed my mind. Like, black children aren't constantly thinking, oh my gosh, the world is out to get me. Why are we writing books that are like this? It bothers me.
And two, it's like we weren't always thinking that the world was out to get me. And that was whether we were, what am I trying to say? Putting these black kids around so many white people heightens that. But like growing up around black people where you would arguably see more blatant expressions of anti-black violence, depending on where you're living around more black people. And still there are moments of, joy and retreat that have nothing to do with white supremacy or anti-Black violence. But that's not what these books are doing anyway. Most of these books are a Black protagonist living in a white world, which then heightens the racial tension. So it's like you're making choices to set up a scenario where either internalized or externalized anti-Black sentiments seem like the logical continuation of the story because of the scenario that you set up, though. But you chose this.
And yeah, like completely agree, because, and it's like, here's the truth though. In general, most of us do have generally responsible parents. Most of us didn't grow up with parents who would like, and it's like, why is this the way even in books that aren't fantasy?
Right.
Like, it's just weird. I don't get it. Let's see. I wasn't sure who we're talking about right here, but okay, I think that's what we're talking about. Okay. Like, would a book like Emily in Paris, but about a Black girl, sell? I haven't seen it, but I've kind of heard about it a little bit. Does anyone know if non-Western story structures or publishing markets are more accommodating to stories that don't require pain isolation for protag? That I don't know, but that would be interesting to find out.
That.
Because like it's like you do for people that aren't like there are other stories that don't have anything to do with pain. Like, that's part of why I like cozy mysteries. Like, they don't have anything to do with negativity for the most part. Like, it's the crime, and the end of the book is almost always a happy ending. The number of Black cozy mystery writers we have is so slim. They were all Black trauma negative roles. I think if you want to see marginalized people of any kind, but specifically Black love being happy, you want to go to indie authors, right? And I feel like that is the message. The more I read these books, that I get that there is not a space for it in traditional publishing, and it bothers me. And the part that bothers me is, would it be that way if we stopped accepting deals where we had to do this?
I could not get to my unmute button. Exactly. Like, that's what's like difficult. It's like there are certain authors that are allowed to rise to the top when they debut or over time, and it's like, but what does the book have to be about? Even if the book are about different magic systems or whatever, or if it's contemporary, but what does the book end up having to be about? Like Black pain. So that the fact that there are these other books out there, sure, but we don't get pre-order campaigns around them. Like, we don't get Twitter campaigns around them. And so it's like, I want more of what Kwame Mbalia did. I want more authors who have like shot to the top quickly to say, I'm out here doing a project that is about Black joy. Like he shot to the top with Tristan Strong, as he should. That book is fire. And I'm so excited for, what is it, Cameron Battle? Yeah, I'm so excited for us to have more of these Black boys just like moving. I'm excited for it. But like, we need more authors who are doing that sort of advocacy, who are not asking. And it's making me think of a poem called We Will Not Ask. I can't think of who it's from, but who it's by. It's a Black spoken word poet like years ago, probably when they were in college. But that's not the point. The point is, we do need to stop asking publishing to let us do things. And those Black writers who are already in the house, already working and operating, need to use those platforms to say, instead of asking you, I'm going to use the cachet that I've garnered from my own work, and just do it, and just put out a call for these works like Karen Strong has done. Yes.
Is that poem read by a woman, or recited by a woman? Okay, I think I found it. I'm dropping it in the thing.
Okay. Cool. So I want more of that. Like, what would happen if L.L. McKinney was like, because we know that she has a huge Twitter platform that people listen to what she says. She is the one that she and Tochi Onyebuchi are the ones that started the hashtag publishing paid me thing, and we've seen what that has done and the transparency that that has yielded. What would happen if they were also like hashtag no more Black trauma? Like what kind of books would publishing feel obligated to push to the top if writers who have that sort of clout spoke up about the trend that we're seeing and capitalizing Black pain, which is a long-standing tradition, but that doesn't mean that we don't need to come against it. That's what I want. I want us to stop asking white publishing to do things that they have never done and will never have an interest in doing until it pays them.
You know, I love me some Kev on Stage, and he did a video because it was more so about the Emmys. And you know how we're all excited because for the Emmys, there were more Black people nominated than in the history of the entire thing. But we saw like 2 Black people walked away with awards. And so he had posted a video and he was like, are we not tired of asking them to acknowledge us? Are we not tired of asking them to see the work that we already know is there? And that's how I feel. Like, no lie, legitimately have already had the conversation. So like, you know, when we get in publishing, we need to like give it 5 years and then start our own imprint, because we can't do this. This we can't do. Like, we can't. And on this comment, right, like, so for me, like Mildred D. Taylor, it boggles my mind how many Black people have never read her books. Like, one, family saga, historical fiction. Woman wrote books starting in the 1970s, and the last one was published in 2020. Like, there's length to her work. Right now, historical fiction is not during slave time, but it is during Jim Crow. So there is that's going on. So there is that to be aware of. But even in the time where Black people can't go to the same schools, there's joy, there's love, there's family constantly. But Not Buddy is in a freaking foster home and searching for his grandfather on the road hitchhiking. And there's joy and there's laughter. And there's something to be said about feeling like the only Black children who deserve joy and laughter are in middle school and not the teenagers who are about to walk into this world that is even more unkind. Like, it's weird to me that we give these age preferences to who deserves to see this version of happiness. Right? Because we do get Black boy joy for middle grade. We do get Black girl joy for middle grade. But it's like YA, we have to rush them to deal with this negativity of the world. And I don't like it. The world is already hard.
I totally forgot about But Not Buddy.
But Not Buddy is hilarious.
I totally forgot about that book.
And nostalgic moment, if you listen to the audio book, it's read by Uncle Phil. So there's that. I'm just saying. Yes, all these recs. I can't wait to go back and get all these recs. Yes, me and Maya working on them cozies. Yes, say less. I love all these recs. Oh, okay, Nia, I'm not about to play with you. Nia said, I didn't read Emily in Paris either. I just know it's a mediocre YA book that was adapted for Netflix. The girl is rich and having adventures in Paris. Oh, I love you, Nia. I love you. I do. Y'all know, my partner over here, you know, she loves her some Alexandria House. So, you know, yes, I want books where Black girls living their best life. Exactly. Y'all are so awesome for all of these. I love y'all. Let me make sure I'm moving. Hey, Mama Tish. Hey, y'all looking for a cozy mystery author? Another Black woman writing cozy mysteries? Here you go. Love me some Mildred D. Taylor. I have all except for, so like the really thin like chapter books that are for kids are like the only ones of hers that I don't have. Like the YA books, like, which again reminds me of how we used to have 2 categories when I was getting books when I was a kid. We had children and we had teens. And it's like the YA and middle grade are like so different now in comparison to that. It's interesting. Right. I'd love more cozies by Black authors. Anyone know of any Black authors who write cozies? I don't yet, except for Mama Tish coming in. Mama Tish coming in with the cozies. Tini says, this is such a mood. It's something I keep in mind when working on my own novel. I want to surround my MC and Black love and positive family. Right? Right? Because it does exist. Right? And we're not saying that like we don't want there to ever be bad stuff happening, because bad stuff happens. And all of us need those representations. Right? We all need to be able to see that. But it's like, can we stop showing bad Black female friendships and actually have friendships where they work out their problems when things go wrong, where we show that communication is important? Like, there are just so many things that it's like, you know, books and media feel so much of what happened. And what just happens if we showed positive things? What happens if we showed good communication? Like, I think the world could change a little bit. I might be, hopeful, but still.
Because the thing is also like, yes, bad things happen, but aren't the good times better because we know bad things happen? Like, it's fine if bad things happen in the story. What we're saying is why so many, and why does it seem like the happiness is so fragile and so thin? Like, why can't we have crews, cohorts of Black people working together so that even in the midst of the hardness, there's not some good? Like, to what Vina said about in Bat Witch Burning, like, Trail has Will with her. So like, even through that, like, she has this friend who doesn't appreciate what she's doing, doesn't agree with it, but it's like, but I'm not gonna leave you in it. Now, I put it down on like chapter 15, so I don't know if at some point Will does step away, but I know is that she's there in the end. So I don't know if she was at some point in the middle, but like, Trill has a road dog that, no pun intended, because her dog dies, but that's like that's important. And I want more of that. I want more. This is really hard, but I got my ace right here with me who's going through it. And then at the end, I want just cathartic joy. And there needs to be cathartic joy in between. Anyway, that's just part of writing. We can't always be up here. Like, there has to be a break in that.
Another reason why I love Elizabeth Acevedo. Oh, it is still up there. Another reason why I love Elizabeth Acevedo, because if there's one thing she gonna write, it's a good Black friend. And I love it. 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 Can we show Black people working out their problems without violence, sitting down and having a conversation about the issue, situation, working through the issue? Right. Because here's the thing. Most of us do this. I know way more Black people who have never been in a physical altercation than I have that have. So like, the fact that this is the thing is like, this isn't what we all do. And y'all perpetrating the myth that it is bothers me. It bothers me. Nice to meet a Black who's writing, because yes. I'm trying to make sure I cover everything that we wanted to talk about. Was there anything else? I feel like we hit it all.
I feel like we pretty much hit it all. We talked a lot about our political allegiance we feel to Black writers to continue. We talked about their political allegiances and the way that they represent their character. We sort of skated on our political allegiance that make us feel like we have to read it, and we skated even more about our ethical responsibilities to ourselves to take care of our mental health. So I don't know if you want to massage that a bit more, if you're
I thought I hit on that, but yeah, no, we can go a little bit deeper with it. But like, for me, specifically with Bat Witch Burning, like, my personal like childhood and growing up was very, very negative. And so I have done a lot of the necessary work through going through therapy, through doing, work on myself as a person, for being an adult and looking back on childhood situations, realizing that as a child, my scope was so limited, and beginning to understand that I realize there are certain things that I have to prepare myself to read, Bad Witch Burning being one of those. And as someone who has been in foster care, and I know that there is a character that has been in foster care and has been adopted, knowing how valuable those stories are, I personally like completely get and understand that. Which is back to part of why I feel the ethical responsibility to at least read the book, because as a Black child who was in foster care, I know I don't read a lot of books about that. I know there's not a lot of conversations about how Black children are the least likely to be adopted, how Black children are the most likely to age out with no one to call mom or dad or to care about what happens to them besides an overworked, underpaid social worker. So I get that and I respect that. But I also realize that Jessica Lewis does not pay for my mental health care bill. Jessica Lewis is not going to be here when I am curled up in a ball crying myself because this book made me relive past traumas that I have done a lot of work to get past, right? Like, the thing about trauma that we do know is when triggers happen, there's very little you can do once you've been triggered. You just have to live and deal with that experience. I know for me that I can't write the books I want to write. I can't be productive. I can't take care of my dogs like I want to. I can't take care of myself if I'm wallowing in that. And so for me, it's using wisdom, right? And it's also realizing that with Grown and with White Smoke, because they don't readily link to my life and experiences that I have, it was more anger than sadness and depression that I experienced. And realizing that although sadness and depression don't feel the same as anger, living and walking in anger can be just as detrimental to your mental and physical health. And so that's why after finishing White Smoke, I made the declaration, I don't see myself ever reading another one of this woman's books. I have read 4. All of them have put me in a negative headspace for some amount of time, even if it was a little while. And I can't allow myself to do that again, right? And I feel like the issue for me about the way these authors write these books is that they don't take into consideration that everybody isn't like Cachet. Everybody hasn't done that labor and done that work to realize that these things will bother them or that these things could be harmful. And so there are people who are going into that book, who are going into that story looking to feel seen and come out worse than they went in. And that bothers me. That bothers me. Let's see. I agree, Heather. For me personally, a DNF is better than a 1 or 2 star rating. I agree. Like, I could just not finish your book, then mess up your ratio. I really could. Charlotte says, just because something is an important conversation to have doesn't mean you don't have a responsibility to have the conversation in a way that doesn't add to other people's trauma and pain. Completely agree. I feel like if you're going to choose to have an important conversation, it is your job to do the work to make sure that that conversation is had in a respectful and in a way that does not harm the other participant in this conversation. And I feel like with Grown, I feel like there were enough words in the front and enough statements in the back, at least for the audio book, that I felt like you gave that to some certain extent. I still feel like you did not give consideration to the Black girls who actually lived that experience, and that bothers me. But I also feel like you couldn't avoid it. I feel like nobody was going to let you publish that book without that warning because the topic is so big. And I feel like, why didn't somebody do the same thing for the other ones?
Yeah, same. Like, I don't have I wouldn't get triggered from these stories like, oh, that takes me back to how I grew up, because I didn't grow up in that hard way. The difficulty I have with my parents is pretty regular, like, friction that children have between their parents at different stages of life, and we got through it, and we are closer now than we've been before, and we have a healthy relationship. It's good. So that wouldn't take me back to a place in my own life. But and this is the thing, right? Because like Cache said, a lot of people do have good relationships with their parents. However you grew up and whatever socioeconomic status, you can still have good relationship with your parents. And so it's not necessarily that you would trigger people who have had those sort of relationships that you're showing in your book, although you could. It's also that whether that reader, I'm talking about Black readers, because the question for me is, how much do these Black writers care about their Black readers? That's what I care about, because I'm writing my book for Black teens, Black young adults, and whoever else reads it, I great. That's great. But I did not write this book with you in mind. And for me, it's just like something happens. Because, right, books are part of media. Books are a medium. So something happens to your psyche or in your psyche when you are constantly seeing images of yourself, whether they reflect your actual reality or not. If they do, it makes you feel more of it. If they don't, it creates a sort of dissonance and identity confusion within yourself. Something happens when you're constantly seeing people that look like you go through a certain level of pain that seems to have to cross a certain threshold of awful to be presented, right? Like we're not seeing discreet, and by discreet I mean more subtle, more like emotionally resonant. We're not seeing those sorts of representations of pain and discomfort and growing. What we're seeing, spectacular dramatizations of pain and trauma and loss and grief. Like something happens when that's what you see, and that seems to be what it is to be Black, even if you know that's not what it is for you. And so for me, that's when it's like, I can't constantly see Black girls be unprotected by the people who are supposed to protect them. It's great if a community rises around them to protect them, but for the fact that like it's never a certainty, it's always a question of whether that community will be in place for that Black person. I can't keep reading that. I cannot keep, because I just can't, because I know little Black girls who I love. I see them weekly. Like I just can't keep seeing these images in my head through books of girls that look like them being unprotected and being under attack, even and especially if the people representing them are other Black women. That's what breaks my heart.
Right.
So I'm like, if this is the price I have to pay, I won't be paying it.
Right. I just won't. Like, again, I'll be an indie author. Like, I just won't. So something that you said that really, really made me think is like, this is what I don't think people think about, right? So you wake up and the news and Instagram and YouTube and Twitter is Black bodies, Black pain, Black pain. You grab a book, Black pain, Black pain, Black pain. You watch a Netflix show, Black pain, Black pain. You watch a movie, Black pain. As a child, this reiterates this in your mind. So it we're about to get deep. It bothers me, right? Because there's so much conversation around Black people having a victim mentality. Where do you think that comes from if all you do is show them being victims of anti-Blackness? If you show me through media that all my identity is to be a victim to the pain that you choose to inflict on me, whether through microaggressions, physically, emotionally, whatever, you create this. And it burns me when it's a Black person creating it. Right? Like, it goes back to why I don't watch Scandal, why I don't watch How to Get Away with Murder, why I don't watch Being Mary Jane, because I'm the Black woman that has to walk in a workspace where I hear people talking about, well, you know, they likes to do a lot of stuff. Be careful. You know, the Jezebel trope exists, and yet we have Black women who write and portray this as a thing when there's Black women who have to walk through these spaces. Like, that's not how I move. That's not how I get down. But unfortunately, you have this vision of me because primetime television tells you That's what we do. It tells you we're strong. It tells you we'll get the job done, but it tells you we'll be sneaky. It tells you we can't stay home. Like, it's so many different things that these messages reiterate, and you just have to wonder why. Why? Who does it benefit? Like, not even trying to be biblical, but just a real life question. What does it gain? What do you gain to sell your soul at the detriment of Black people? Like, I don't get it. Like, all that money would mean nothing to me to know that I am contributing to the detriment of my people. I just couldn't.
And that's where the politic part of the conversation comes in for me, where it's like, I don't feel a political obligation to read a Black book once I discern that writer has distanced themselves from important, significant political obligations of representation. Once I see that you are not taking into account the mind space of your reader or the representation of your characters and the effect of representation on them, then I don't feel any obligation to read your book, because what we know is, and so Eni D. Madison, who is a performance ethnographer and a professor, she wrote this in a book, her third book, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like Performing Africa or something like that. But she writes early in the book. Because she was watching a documentary about an African country or something, and the representation was bad, and it sparks conversation among the people that were watching it that was detrimental about the people of Africa. And so she was like, what I left that documentary thinking was, how people are represented is how they're treated. And this is her, because when you write an ethnography, there's like a part where you talk about your own positionality. You like, I am a cis het Black woman who has a PhD in whatever, and I'm going into this space of XX kind of people who have access to XX and X. I interact with them. This is my politic of interacting with them and entering their space and changing this space by my very presence. Right? You have that moment of transparency to ethically, right? Like that, it's part of that sort of ethical obligation of ethnography. So what I want to bring forth from what Madison says is how people are represented is how they're treated. Is books, novels are not ethnographic, right? But they do get treated like ethnographic, anthropological, social texts. And so knowing that as a writer, even if you know that that's not true, you have an obligation to treat the assumption. If I know that the assumption is that how I'm presenting this one character, who is one of many kinds of characters I want to write, I have to be careful how I portray them. Maybe it's not what I wanted, but what I have to do is deal with what is and be careful of, like Shay said, the kinds of Black girls, the Black girls who are going to read this book and the lives that they have to walk through, and how other people who are not Black might read and take this book and then therefore treat them. If I don't care about that, I'm wrong. If I don't care about that, I am wrong. I don't care what anybody says. Ethically, if you count that cost and you decide I don't care at all, that is a problem. Now, you may say, I do care, and here's how I want to negotiate that. And I might not like your negotiation, but at least you are saying, I'm trying to be in relation to this fact, and negotiation is messy. Try again better next time. All right, I can get with you learning and growing. But you not caring at all, you counting up the cost and being like, yeah, that's cool. I can't get with that. It's irresponsible, it's lazy, it's selfish in a way that completely disregards the communal way that Black people in America have always been made to move. It doesn't matter if you don't want to be a part of the we. You socially, in American public imagination, Black people are a we. And you can say we're not a monolith, and people can agree with that. But that doesn't mean they're going to separate us in their mind. It just means that they'll be like, well, some of them move differently, but it's still Black people. right? Because we say Black peoples, but we're still putting them together as a people. And so when authors move like they're not counting those costs and like they're not aware of the stakes of representation, it bothers me, because I'm thinking a lot about how I want to support you, and you don't seem to be putting a lot of thought into how that affects me. And if we're not going to be equally yoked in this relationship of reader and writer, then it's like, well, I'm not going to be in a relationship with someone who seems to have less to lose than I do, right? That's not smart. So I'll just excuse myself. And so that's what it is for me when we talk about the political obligation to read a book, and the ethical ramifications of engagement.
Shomala, to answer your question, I do think it's a bigger issue in YA than middle grade and adult. I will say that. Because before White Smoke, the book that I liked the least that I read this year was Black Buck. And in Black Buck, the mama was phenomenal. Like, I did not dislike the mama, like, at all. I do think it worsened after the success of The Hate U Give. So here's the thing. I've not read The Hate U Give. I refuse to read The Hate U Give. I refuse to watch the movie. I'm just not a fan. I'm just not a fan of the concept. I'm not disparaging her writing. I'm not saying the story wasn't good or anything like that. I feel like Concrete Rose doesn't have the same kind of thing, and I might eventually read that, if that's the thing. But that book has been on the New York Times bestseller list for years. Like, just sitting there for years. Why? What is it about this book that people continuously are buying it and continuously reading it, but nobody's changing? But it's not safer to be Black. We're all reading it, right? But why is nobody changing? Why are there because something about the book, to me, isn't promoting change. Something about the book isn't promoting things need to be different. We need to be doing things a different way. It's a no for me, dog. It's a no for me. I agree with this. Words are powerful, and when it's continuously presented in such a negative and traumatic way, that becomes normalized, and that then becomes a false reality. I completely agree. Venus says the influx of books written by Black women about Black boys being shot is a problem, and I thought those early 2000 stories about them trying to move out the hood was bad. These are far worse. I agree. It's everywhere. And then these authors called them their love letters to Black boys' men. How is your story where one of them dies a love letter? What? Wait. Somebody called their love letter to Black boys, but in the story, the Black boy dies? The math ain't mathing. Hey, Margaret, thank you for being here. The math ain't mathing. Okay, so, Nicole, good question. So a microaggression are the things that are done that come off as and seem benign in the way that they are presented, but have deep ramifications and are rooted in anti-Blackness and white supremacy in their actuality. So when when Black women are in workspaces and the conversation is about their natural hair is that it should be straightened, or that it should be relaxed because that's more professional. That's a microaggression, because you're telling that Black woman that how she comes and exists in this world is not professional enough, and she needs to do things to assimilate to make her seem or appear more professional in order to do a job that has nothing to do with her hair. So that would be one. I'm trying to think of another one. Britt, you know another one offhand that you could think of as an example?
Yeah, so I spoke about in the live, that my Friday reading live that I had on Friday, about me reading the 4C, which is a committee about like communication, whatever. It's an academic organization. They did in 2020. They had like a Black linguistic justice type of thing, where they were talking about the implications of deriding Black language as connected to Black Lives Matter. So yeah, when you're talking about like Black language, when people try to degrade Ebonics or Black vernacular or appropriate it as a sort of clownery, where they do it in a way that's like they're playing us in a way that makes us seem extra or too much or funny. So that too, it's a death by 1,000 cuts type thing, where it comes off as though it's subtle or unintentional, but it has deep psychic ramifications for the Black person, and it does become a death by 1,000 cuts type of thing, where for some it has a numbing effect, and some it has a sort of cumulative effect where it builds into a mental breakdown or some sort of explosion because of the cumulative effect of these things that seem benign to the person who does it, but it always lands as not even micro, as completely aggressive to our Blackness, which is to say to our being, right? So that's microaggression. The term is microaggression, but like someone just said, it would
and
say
legitimately, I feel like the only reason that the word micro is used is because 9 times out of 10 it's done covertly. Like it's one of those things that, like, low key, if you're not Black, sometimes you might not even hear or pick up on, because it's things that are specific to us, right? I like what Mama Tisha is saying. She's like, money, it's all about the money. People don't care about people. It's all about self-immediate gratification, selling to those who will buy without consciously thinking about how it will impact Black culture. I definitely agree. Vina out here talking to she up here dropping the tea time by. And some of these folks aren't even really in the community. Look at who their partners are. Some already got one foot out. You know, some of y'all, when I see some of the stuff, I be like, now your book makes sense, is all I'm saying. Heather says, how people are represented is how they're treated is so alarmingly accurate. I agree. Charlotte says, the principles of ethnography, I don't know if am I saying that wrong? Ethnography. I hate the way English is, y'all. There it is. Should be taught as part of standard school education. It teaches self-awareness and how you affect others. And I'm sad I only got to learn about it in university. I completely agree. Mama Tisha's prime example shows the love of hip hop. Shows like that tells you how some feel validated, valued, and self-worth. Books are the same, exactly. All of these are like, man. I'm trying to see. Let's see which ones I've heard. I've heard this one. I've heard this one. I've heard this one. I'm not there, but when in getting a master's degree, wow, you're gonna right this one. Y'all, the number of times I've been with my nephews and people have assumed that my nephews and nieces are my children. Why? Right. And sometimes it's not necessarily, it doesn't come off like talking down. Like a lot of times it's backhanded compliments, a lot of times. So, you know, there's that. All right, y'all, any more final thoughts from those of you guys in the chat or anything like that? All in all, what we want y'all to take away from the conversation is DNFing is not a bad thing. Sometimes you need to DNF for your own mental health and well-being. Reading books are not the only way to support authors. And so if you want to support an author, but you are putting yourself at a mental deficit to do that, let's find other ways to do that.
I mean, Shay, were you about to address that? Okay.
This one. Yeah. Okay, so here's my take on this. Okay. And so microaggressions, like intersectionality, like the Me Too movement, like so many things, like Say Her Name, like just so many things that were started by Black people to bring conversations and lights, things that were affecting Black people. And for some people, it is much easier to apply these things to groups of minorities instead of just Black people. So I hope I'm being clear in what I'm saying, in that anybody can experience a microaggression, But when microaggressions and the conversation about microaggressions was being had and coming to mainstream, it was about how things Black people experience in academia and in the workplace. So again, no, there's not necessarily I don't know if there's a different term. I might not be aware of that, so I'll be clear on that. But it is one of those things that, again, a Black woman started the Me Too movement, and then it very quickly became this thing that don't nobody see Black people and talk about no more. So I hope that makes sense.
And I will just add that the term microaggression was coined by a Black psychiatrist. His name was Chester M. Pierce. It was 1970, and he used it to describe insults and dismissals that he regularly witnessed non-Black Americans inflicting on Black Americans. And so just that, it's not like the term is used broadly now to describe the phenomenon of these slick comments, or these things that are said like they're innocent, but actually, like I said, have a deep psychic resonance and consequence. And that's used, like we can see microaggressions and regarding gender, we can see it regarding different races. But like Shay said, this is something that was coined by a Black person to describe a phenomenon against Black people, that has been not co-opted, because these things do happen to other races, but it's used now. It's what I just said is the answer to the question. What I would add is I think it's very funny that I didn't know either, Heather. I just Googled it. So think, whatever. But what I find funny is how ready we are to stretch or to shift or to share terms that were created to describe the experience of being Black in America to other races, or even across
other minorities,
across gender, or across gender, maybe intersectional. I find it interesting how easily we share those terms across, and then it becomes, what it shows is a lack of stamina to stare the racial problem of America in the face. Because yes, we know that other races experience racism, but the quickness with which people tire of addressing anti-Black racism, when we have seen a spectacular, and I'm using that word spectacular very intentionally, it's a spectacle. It has never not been a spectacle. The presence of Black people in America, and this isn't me saying to someone who has a master's in Africana studies, the presence of Black people in America has never not been spectacular. It has never not been spectacular. And very soon after Black people were brought here, it was performative. A lot of the ways that African peoples were punished was made spectacle, was made performance to enforce a certain want of behavior. Whippings were not private events. That was happening in the town square, right? So those sorts of things, and that's just early Black American history or African American history at that point. Not even African American, Africans in America. We can bring it up to the civil rights movement. We could take it farther back to the Niagara movement. We could take it farther back to the 1920s and the progressive movement. All these things, Reconstruction. You can park wherever you want to park. It's always been spectacle, and at every turn there's been a push to deny the presence of the spectacle and the presence of the problem, no matter how clear the problem has been. And I just want to flag that. Because I find a lot of times that it's always, and this is saying nothing to your question, Lee, it's often that I hear but is that a Black thing, or isn't that everybody? It's not really about is it everybody. First of all, let's acknowledge the history of the term, and second of all, let's talk about why so often we want to make things everybody when the conversation was about Black people.
Right. And y'all know that's always been my thing, is that for the majority of Americans, right, it is easier to acknowledge a collective problem with people of color than to say black. Like, there are so many different things that we do in this country that we just can't put the focus on black people. Because if we say black people,
but
I don't know what's going to happen.
Isn't it everybody?
Right. And it's like, it does happen to everybody. But for me, it seems like other people don't start to care until black people start talking about it. Right? Like, it's always bothered me that I hear, well, more white people get killed by police officers. That don't make y'all mad? That doesn't bother you that unarmed white people are being killed by police officers? Because obviously it makes us mad that unarmed black people are. So why are you being mad at me for being more upset about people like me dying than you are? There's a lot that goes behind it, Lee. And so I completely appreciate your question, because like, while I knew that microaggressions was a term that came from a black person, I couldn't have told you who. So shout out to Britt for looking that up for us. But it happens so often in these conversations. And there are so many different discourses that happen, especially on Twitter, that we talked about LL McKinney and Publishing Paid Me. She has had to tweet multiple times that while the conversation now is about white people in publishing versus people of color in publishing, the intention of the hashtag Publishing Paid Me was about black people and their counterparts, white or not. The conversation has been now turned into people of color and their white counterparts. But that's not what she started the conversation for. That conversation is barely a year old, and it's already been co-opted and changed to be about something that it wasn't.
And let's just be clear that the project behind that is absolutely black erasure. Like, let's not say that. Let's not say that. When we overuse the term person of color, when the people being most affected are black, what is behind that? What is mobilizing that is black erasure. Because what is the point of being general when you know the specific? It's to invisibilize the problem so that the solution is less effective. We don't like talking about anti-blackness in this country, and we would rather make it about POCs in general than deal with the fact that there is a legitimate attack on black people and blackness, regardless of the fact that black people and black culture mobilize most of the things that happen in this country.
Country/world, if we're being real.
Right, on a global stage.
Right, on a global scale. Like, black American culture does so much for everybody.
Right.
Like, it's just a thing. And so to fight so hard for our pain to stop being trivialized when our talent fuels everything else that you do is bothersome.
People in Korea are dancing to hip hop. That's all we need to say. People in Korea are
they got that video with them do-rags to DMX that been on Twitter all day, and I was like, this bothers me. We got a few more comments, and I know we're doing good. We're not even hit 2 hours yet. I'm actually kind of proud. Erica says, once some terminology hits white mainstream, we often forget and don't acknowledge the creator, nor do we know its etymology. I completely agree. Venus says, I'm tired of seeing the bestsellers list full of only black stories where the characters are so focused on white macroaggressions to the point where they aren't fully formed characters. Right. I said the other day, I don't understand why every black YA fantasy has at least one non-black character. I sure don't see the reverse. I definitely agree with that. Like, it's a problem. Mama Tish says, too many in this country are trying to erase black people history. Sad, but even our own don't even know our history, don't know what to know or simply care. Right. We got to find a way to continuously be heard, for sure. The general when you know the specific line was really good. Right. Well, yay! Glad y'all enjoying it. Hey, Deidre, I love being a fly on the wall because everything is needing to be said and is. Well, good. Y'all know we try to keep it as real as we can in these conversations. So definitely appreciate y'all being here for us. For the next few months, we'll be focusing on writing more so than books, getting into the writerly parts of the conversations, even though we have been breaking down all these books from our writerly standpoints. Britt, you got anything you want to drop or say or anything before we close out?
We have is our conversation tomorrow?
Yes, When Black Women Speak. It will be on my channel. I have to set the live up. We'll be on my channel tomorrow. I'll let you know because I don't know if we're gonna keep it at the same time. I don't know how everybody's schedule is this week. I know we all got stuff going on, so we'll message and it'll be up in the morning. So when y'all wake up, y'all see it. So there's that. But we will be talking about even, I guess, going a little bit deeper into this conversation with the ethics. Wait, it's over. Yeah, the ethics of just being in your career as a Black person. So just the different things and how we've all had to move and the ethical conversations we've had to have within ourselves about our jobs. So that'll be the topic tomorrow. Next month is Black Aweenathon. Both of us are co-hosts, the lovely host of Black Aweenathon, Logbook Tish and Bree. The other third of When Black Women Speak, who is in the comments, is hosting that. So you guys be on the lookout for that. There will be plenty of reading sprints, plenty of time for you guys to get in and get the books read. There will be some giveaways. A lot. What were you going to say, Britt?
I was just going to say shout out to Chloe from Thistle and Verse for giving us that topic for When Black Women Speak. If y'all have topics that y'all want to hear, for sure DM the When Black Women Speak Twitter to let us know. That's not a guarantee that we'll do it, but we want to hear and we may. So definitely, if you're not following us on Twitter, it's at WBWS_convos. So follow us so that you can DM us your ideas. We definitely want to hear your thoughts. And if you don't follow Chloe's amazing channel, Thistle and Verse, you definitely should. It has wonderful sci-fi recs, and she curates really, really good conversations from author interviews to genre interrogations. Like, she's very, very thoughtful about the content on her channel. You should definitely go check it out if you have not already.
And she is also the host of Black SF-a-thon, SFF-a-thon, which is next month as well. And I want to say it's the beginning half of the month, I believe. I don't have the exact date, so don't quote me on it. But you can go check out her channel, Thistle and Verse, or her Twitter, and you'll know, because she definitely makes sure y'all know. I can't think of anything else. Videos will be coming out from both of us within the next couple of weeks. So, make sure you hit that notification bell. And,
ring that bell. I know she didn't think I was going to miss an opportunity to. I don't even know I should just slide it in there. Please. Okay,
it's the 3rd. Heather says it's the 3rd to the 16th. Yay. Okay, you guys, thank you guys so much for being here. Y'all were awesome. Y'all, man, y'all are just great. We appreciate y'all so much. All right, y'all. Bye.